Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad podcast. My name is Ryan Walker, and with me, as always, is the Royal Ruben Williams. How are you, mate?
G'day, Ryan. I'm fantastic, thank you. Always a pleasure to podcast with you. I'm enjoying the surf coast at the moment, but it is missing the Prince of Jan Juk. I'm not sure when you're coming down here next, but the people want the Prince back. So when are they going to get him?
Well, I believe we've got an incubator week planned, Rubes. So now that we're out of lockdown here in Melbourne, I can venture down to where I used to call home, Jan Juk or Lawn, where you are right now. So it's a very exciting time, as is today, because it's an exciting day. We've got a huge guest on the podcast from the Rajasthan Royals. So get ready for that. But before we do, a quick word from our good friends at Deakin University, where every single course is backed by industry experts, so you can be confident that you'll get the job you want with a degree employers want. Deakin University, progressive real-world learning.
This show, Ryan, would also not be possible without our friends from Sports Where I Am. If you're looking to give yourself an incredible summer or winter with any sporting event you can think of, go to sportswheream.com and use the code SportsGrad to grab 5% off your tickets. There's some incredible events coming up. And if you're just looking for things to do, jump on their website and just type in where you are, and it'll give you all the sport that's going on. It's an incredible website.
It's a cool platform. Hey, with the world opening up now, I expect you would be down at Deakin University in the next few weeks, I would have thought. Saying hello to the students, of course. Great memories going back to Deakin. I believe I went to a Deakin event which you invited me to. It was the DUS networking night.
Yes.
That was a great night. So hopefully we get another invite when the next event comes through. But good times at Deakin University for you, my friend.
Absolutely.
If you want to learn more about who we are or want to ask us any questions, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. You can find a link to do so in the show notes. So today, huge guest from the Rajasthan Royals. We've got Rohit Ramasubramanian, who leads the new ventures team at the Royals, which is an incredible role. As part of that role, Rohit oversees new revenue and monetization opportunities, including new business lines, products, and investments. Rohit graduated from the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras with a Bachelor of Technology. So he's got a fair background behind him, and the chat we had with him, I tell you what, it opened my eyes a little bit, just to see what he does day to day at the Royals, just thinking about new business opportunities. It was really awesome just to think of the world outside of just the sport. He's just looking everywhere for new business. So it was awesome to chat with him. What are some great things that you took away from it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ryan. Like, the best bit about doing this podcast is sometimes it just opens your eyes to what is going on out there. And Rohit is probably, as far wide my eyes have ever been open to what sport is doing out there. And so, yeah, one of the things that he talked about was just how brands and teams are using their label and their name to start new revenue streams, bring new ideas to the table and commercialize them. And the Royals are, being inspired by people like the Barcelona Innovation Hub and Manchester City Group to create their own new products and services and investments that are, are making not just broadcast and ticket revenue the main source of income for them.
Yeah, I loved how he spoke about his journey from startups to cricket and the experiences that he had, from doing a startup, and how it really held him in good stead going through those challenges to now where, we joked about it, but he has one of the best job satisfaction rates in the world, I'd imagine, because he's just doing what he loves, kind of because he's doing what he used to do, but in a place that he loves and in a sport that he loves, which is cricket. So that was awesome to hear as well.
Absolutely. And finally, just like the skills that he was able to get from working in a startup, he tells the story of the roller coaster journey that his company went on to get what it did. But those experiences allowed him to step into the Royals, and you get some very unique skill sets from that. You develop some very well-rounded mindsets as well from doing startup. You and I know this well, but to hear how he's done it in India was absolutely fascinating.
Awesome. Well, grab a pen. I would honestly say one of the cooler guests we've had so far on the podcast, Rube. So grab a pen, enjoy this chat with Rohit Ramasubramanian. Rohit, welcome to the SportsGrad podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Rohit, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. You've got an absolute dream job. I know a lot of our listeners would love to be working for the Rajasthan Royals, where superstars of the game, such as Ben Stokes and Jofra Archer, come down and apply their craft. But for you, what do you enjoy most about working at the Royals?
So it's a very, very interesting question. I think if I look at the Royals and if I look at the IPL as a slightly, at a slightly higher level, it's a very, very intense tournament. It's unlike any other sports tournament in the world in that it happens in such a short time frame. It happens in 2 months, 2.5 months. So it's 2 months of action-packed excitement, high intensity cricket, and everything that goes around it. So it's like you literally cannot sleep during that period. Even what I do, which is slightly removed from the day-to-day operations of the team itself, you're doing everything you can to leverage that period, that 2.5 months period when the eyes of the country are glued to the IPL, and trying to just maximize the reach for everything that we're doing, all the products, all the services, all the various initiatives that we're doing. And so everything sort of boils down to that that 3-month window, and it just makes it a very, very exciting time, makes it a time of sleeplessness for sure, time of, I'd say, high passion, both for the fans as well as internally, because at the end of the day, we are essentially super fans. We we sort of ride the emotions of the team, whether we win or we lose. We are as close to the action as possible, and unfortunately, Rajasthan Royals haven't had the best of it in the last season or two, and so you're sort of riding the waves with the team. So it's just a moment of just passion, intensity, excitement, and it all sort of just comes to a head during those 2 months, both from a cricket perspective and a work perspective.
I can imagine it would have been pretty hard. You said it runs for 2 months, but the last season gone, it was significantly delayed. How did that go for you? Did it just basically ruin all the momentum that you had leading in?
So I'd say that if I look at what happened since I joined, so I've been with the Royals for about a year and a half. When I got in just when the pandemic was taking effect globally. The IPL was supposed to happen in 2020 in the April-May window, and so preparations were on for it, and then that got sucked out and it got pushed out by 6 months. Then there was, again, 6 months later, there's another tournament which got cut in half. And again, in 6 more months, you have another tournament, which is the second half of that tournament. So typically, the IPL's been a annual thing, but since I came, it's almost been like every 6 months there has been something. So I think for me, I'm kind of getting used to the fact that there is something something every 6 months. Actually,
so
interestingly,
this is business as usual for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to get bored, I think, when it shifts to its annual cycle again. But actually, interestingly, for me, it actually works well, because what I'm trying to do with the Royals, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in some time, but it's not about the delivery of the game of cricket on that day. It's about how we can take that brand of the Royals and use it to engage our fans all through the year, use it to monetize the brand all through the year. So having the tournament run more frequently actually helps. Like I would love it if the IPL was a 10-month long tournament, because it just makes my job easier. So
and it's such a strong brand. Like, a lot of people who know cricket would recognize the pink of the Rajasthan Royals.
Absolutely. I think the tournament is now probably one of the top 5, top 10 biggest tournaments in the world. We're expecting a new media rights deal in next year actually for the subsequent period from 23 onwards. I think that will also shatter records and prove how big it is in the global stage. We've had 2 new teams join just a couple of days back, again going at record prices. So it shows how paramount the tournament is in the Indian context, and it's going global. You've got more viewers from outside India than ever before as well. So sky seems to be the limit for this tournament.
I remember when the IPL first came in, and I don't know if you remember this, Ruse, but we had a channel here called 1HD. Do you remember that, Ruse?
Yep.
Like,
I remember that well.
I'm not sure it even exists now, but like that's the only way you could watch. Nah, it was like this sport channel, and you used to stay up late and watch it, and it was like, it feels like it's completely transformed from that point in time where it was just like it was on 1HD. It was kind of like whatever, but now it is just front and center. It's everywhere, which is amazing. I want to go back a little bit way back to when you first sort of started. I'm wondering what led you to the Rajasthan Royals, and what sort of skills did you need to land your role there?
Sure, that's a great question. So I think I wanted that. I've had some desire to work in cricket for a very, very long time. I've been a cricket fan since I was 10 years old. I think the 99 World Cup was the first time I watched cricket properly. I think actually it was a little before that. It was during these epic India-Australia matches at Sharjah, which were, Tendulkar's Desert Storm innings. You guys might remember it for the wrong reasons. So that's when I really got into cricket. Obviously, I studied, I did my engineering, so had nothing to do with sport. I worked in consulting, spent some time in venture capital, also ran my own startup. But I think post that, once I sort of exited that company, we sold it. I took a bit of a break, like a personal enforced break. I just wanted to take some time off. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, it all sort of came back saying, why don't you give this a shot again? If you want to work in cricket, which is such a core passion, there's probably just a few avenues in India. It's probably true in Australia as well. You could either work for the BCCI, you could work maybe for the ICC, or you could work for an IPL team. And if you look at those options, if you're looking for that excitement, if you're looking for that passion, you're looking for the ability to do stuff, you're probably going to pick an IPL team. So that's how I sort of conceptualized and thought of how I might get into the space. I think the way I finally broke in was serendipity, and I think that's not uncommon, at least with a lot of my team as well, in terms of how they get into the Royals, how they get into an IPL franchise. It's a very, very small world, so it's a fairly well-known set of 150 people who work across all the different franchises, and got so many people trying to get into that same sort of role. In my case, I'd say I kind of lucked out in that. So I'd reached out to Jake, who is our current CEO and who was the COO at that time. It was just a cold message on LinkedIn, not a platform I incidentally use very much, but it was a cold message there. They were at the same time looking to see how they could do what it is that I'm doing now, which is trying to utilize that brand and generate more meaningful monetization opportunities for the Royals. I reached out with a skill set that supported that vision. I also brought in certain ideas and said that I also want to do something like this. We had a couple of conversations, it sort of clicked, and I think took me less than 3 or 4 days for me to have to get a role at the Royals. So it all happened really quickly. I think the takeaway is probably cold emails work, or cold connections work. So don't shy away from that. I know it has worked for me in the past as well. From when I was running my startup, there was a cold email that led us to actually getting allowing the company to run for a little bit longer and get a successful exit. So just do what you can. When you're hustling, you try everything. It is a small world, there's no doubt about it, and it may not always succeed, but don't give up. Just certainly keep trying. Try whatever avenues you can. You might luck out like I did, and if there is that perfect role that suits your exactly what your skill set is, there's no reason why you won't get it.
Rohit, the research team at SportsGrad is extensive, and we find out a lot of details about our guests that the guests don't even know about themselves. We knew about this startup that you'd run. We didn't know about the successful exit, which is extremely exciting. But I'm wondering, how did that prepare you for a role in sport?
Sure. So, I think we started the company in 2015. The idea behind the startup, is one of those, I'd say, typical sort of Indian consumer tech startups that were sort of mushrooming at that time. We were into the e-commerce of secondhand goods. We ran the company for about 4 years. We raised a decent amount of capital from several marquee investors as well. We went through the ups and downs that every startup goes through, I'd say, except for the most hyper successful ones. We had our good times. We had times when we were able to raise money very easily. We also hit a snag in around late 2017, 18, where it looked like we might have to shut down, and then we somehow managed to bring it to a, I'd say, a respectable exit. I think that whole experience is something that you cannot trade for anything. It's something that you probably won't get unless you're in the firing line and doing it. So I'd say that experience probably going to hold me in good stead whatever I do in life, whether that is sport, whether that is anything else that I choose to do 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. So I'd say that is just pure unadulterated experience of the best and the most intense kind. Having said that, I think what I did over there is essentially in a way translating to what I'm doing here. So so my role at the Royals is about identifying new opportunities and setting up new products, new projects, new partnerships to drive revenue. And what I did at my startup was exactly this. We built a business from scratch. We had absolutely nothing. We built it to almost doing at $1.3 million a month in sales.
Wow.
So the ability to take an idea from scratch, hone it, polish it, execute, bring it to that MVP stage, scale it up. That's exactly what I'm doing now at the Royals. It's just that I'm doing it for a cricket team, for cricket products. So I'd say the functional experience.
So you're just working for fun now.
No, I think I've got like that perfect amalgamation of what I've done and what I'd like to do. In that it sits between it's what I know how to do well, and what I in a space that I really, really love.
Sounds awesome. Like your career satisfaction at the moment is like 10 out of 10.
Through the roof.
Yeah, through the roof.
So I'd say that's difficult to be 10 out of 10 when it's when you're building new businesses, because I'd say your emotional quotient it depends a lot on the success of those individual products, and that is not guaranteed no matter what. Every new business that we run, it's like its own mini startup, and it can have moments when, oh wow, we've cracked some amazing deals and it looks like consumers are lapping it up, and there are days when you just get nothing. No, there's no response. There's no, it just nothing seems to work. So we've had some failed products as well. So, so you are tied into that. But yes, I think on the whole, the sort of Venn diagram of where I'm sitting is nicely in what I'd like to do. But yeah, it's very difficult to be 10 on 10 all the time, just given how emotional, and it also doesn't help that we could have had a better season, I think, this year. But yes, it's been a fun ride so far.
Sounds like a Royals premiership win would probably make that the 10 out of 10.
That would make it absolutely.
That's exciting for next year, hopefully.
So the sport equivalent of a successful exit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. But it doesn't happen all the time. But hopefully we're doing a lot to fix that this year. I think that's a very, very high priority for our CEO Jay, to just make sure that we're able to pull back our performances as well. And I'm sure we will. I'm sure this year, next year we'll have a much, much better performance, and hopefully we will go all the way and win.
Well, Rubes and I now have our favourite team, which is exciting. I didn't actually have an IPL team before today, so the Royals are now ours.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah, we'll have to get pink shirts like you.
Yeah. Just remind me after this call. I'll make sure you get a couple.
Excellent. We can do a trade for some SportsGrad merchandise or something.
You have one of these if you want, Rohit. These are our shirts, so we can
Yeah.
we'll do a merch
We
trade.
might, or we can
Let's
dive
swap.
into the boxes of Cricket Australia merch we've got left over from our old roles.
Oh,
I wouldn't mind that
that's a
actually.
rabbit hole. So you lead the new ventures team at the Rajasthan Royals, and that is a term that a lot of listeners out there might not understand too much about. What does a new ventures team do at a professional sporting club? So can you tell us a little about what that entails and what does your day-to-day look like in a new ventures team?
Sure, absolutely. So maybe let me start by explaining why this team exists at the Royals, which can help answer that question, and then I'll jump into what I do. But the thesis behind this team is that so the IPL is probably a slightly more extreme example of this, but it's true for most sports teams. Most of the money that you make is not really controllable revenue. I'd say about 75% of the money that the Royals make in a year where there's ticketing. So it would be even higher in the last couple of years without ticketing. 75% of it just comes from, in our case, the BCCI, which is through your broadcast deal. That's the deal that Star has with the BCCI, and your central sponsors, which is sponsors like Vivo and Cred and so on. That's not really in your control. So that's obviously controlled by the IPL, and it will grow. There's no doubt about it. It will grow very rapidly. But you can't do much about it as a franchise. The other sort of sizable revenue stream is our own sponsorship. The sponsors that you see on our, like Dubai Expo and Red Bull and Geo and so on, that makes up 15-20% of our revenue. And while that's obviously a controllable, that will also grow at a certain pace, year on year. What we wanted, and there's a little bit which is your ticketing and merchandising. Ticketing has obviously gone down to zero now, and we don't know when it'll come back. Hopefully next year it'll be back. The thesis behind this team is, okay, so you can control sponsorship and then you can control ticketing to some extent, but what else? And you have a brand that's been built over the last 13-14 years. You have the brand of the IPL, which is worth billions and billions of dollars. What can we do to just sweat that brand a little bit more, create more engagement assets for our fans, create more monetizable or monetization opportunities for us as the Royals? And that's the thinking behind this. The way we're approaching it is there are probably 2-3 ways in which we're looking at this. We're looking at this through products that we can build out ourselves, things like the Royal School of Business, the Academy business, and so on, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We're also looking at just general partnerships, ways in which we can leverage some of our assets, leverage some of our our digital content and so on a little bit more, and again see if there are ways to sell that or monetize it directly with our consumer. And then we're also looking at other let's say cricket initiatives. You've seen us acquire a team in the Caribbean Premier League. We're looking at other leagues, in globally as well, and we can see how. And honestly, it's not just limited to cricket. There could be other interesting opportunities in other sports as well. So just generally a more investment mentality to see how else we can sweat the Royals brand and make it more prominent globally. So these are some of the avenues with which we're sort of tackling this problem. I'd say we've probably got 3 products now, or actually 4 products now that we've launched since I've come in. We have the Royal School of Business, which incidentally is something that we work very closely with Deakin University on. This is a professional education platform for people who are interested in sports and sports-related education. We have a bunch of programs, all online. So programs like sports marketing, sports media, sports operations, sports digital marketing. We have a program that's just launched recently, actually, with INSEAD, which is on leadership and performance. So these are, very sort of, I'd say, topical, very relevant for the Indian audience, because the sports industry is about to boom in the country. You've seen it with the IPL, you've seen it with the plethora of sports leagues that are opening up now across the country, whether it be Kabaddi, whether it be the soccer league, and so on. So we think that the timing of such a platform is right, and it'll allow us to help bring more professionalism and bring more education to people who are interested in working in sports. So the Royal School of Business probably our most promising and most prominent product that we have launched, still, with very, very interesting partnerships with Deakin University, with INSEAD, and so on. We have the academy business where we actually run global licensed academies. Our focus here is, I'd say, slightly tilted towards the international market. The Royals as a brand is very keen on growing the brand outside India as well. We have 2 academies in the UAE, in Dubai, and in Ajman. We have 2 academies in the UK, in Surrey and in Cornwall. We have a couple more in the pipeline in the USA. We have another one in the UK in the pipeline. So we have a fairly aggressive sort of target on where we want to get to with this academy business. It's sort of an academy in the box where you get the Royal sort of way of coaching, you get a technology platform, and you find a highly qualified local partner to operate the business for you. Apart from that, we've got a couple of so we have a stealth content platform which should be launched in another month. It's on the business of cricket, which I think could also be very interesting for your listeners, something for them to check out when we do launch. We're looking at other interesting avenues, places like NFTs, which everyone is talking about. So we're just on the verge of signing a partnership on that front. We're looking at the esports space, again, something that we've seen a lot of global sports teams do, but not really anyone in India tackling this. But I think we have some very interesting ideas on the esports space, looking at fan tokens. So there's a lot of these new age monetization opportunities that it helps for us to have a ear to the ground, and we'd love to be obviously the first team in the IPL to actually figure out what the right approach is and be that, I'd say, innovator and first mover across many of these new technologies that are coming up.
Fantastic. Sounds like you're doing a whole range of innovative new things. Is a function like the new ventures team, is that common across sporting teams and codes, or is that just something that the Royals do?
So I'd say in India, it's kind of unique. I've not seen any of the other IPL franchises tackle the problem in the way that we are tackling it. Having said that, it's probably a matter of time. I have seen this function in international sports teams, though. I think most international, if you look at the revenue sources of a Manchester City or a Manchester United or some of your NFL, NBA teams, and so on, it goes beyond just the core rights as well as sponsorships and merchandise ticketing. A lot of them are doing.
Barcelona have got the hub of innovation.
They've got the innovation hub, yes. In fact, that innovation hub was a big inspiration for us when we started our Royal School of Business. So yeah, I think globally we're seeing a lot more of this. It's probably a matter of time for this to take up in India. I think it helps that our ownership team, our shareholders are all very, I'd say, venture-minded, business-minded, let's say shareholder value focused sort of people. So I'd say that's one of the reasons why we're the first to do it here. But yeah, I just think it's a matter of time that the rest of the IPL and I'd say all other sports will start doing this.
You mentioned Man City there, and I reckon if I look back at this type of thing, new ventures, whatever it is, it kind of feels like the catalyst for how this all began. You look back, I think they got taken over in 2008, and then since then, I think they own over 6 teams. Well, it's actually probably more from all over the globe. And what I don't understand is, like, how do they actually make that profitable? Like, if you're just buying football clubs, like, surely it's not going to just be profitable overnight. So I guess that's probably part of your role as well, to actually figure out, yes, we can sort of go into whatever we want to do, but how do we actually make that profitable for us?
So I think the advantage with the IPL, which is kind of unique in that sense, just given the business model of the IPL itself, is that it's kind of profitable now and will continue to be profitable going forward, the IPL itself. That allows you a little bit of leeway in terms of, say, any other acquisition. If you're looking at, say, the Barbados Royals, if you're looking at the Caribbean Premier League, it gives you a little bit of leeway to make that profitable. You're not under pressure to make it profitable on day one. The IPL's central rights deal, the sort of revenue, the cost structure that is in place in the form of the major cost, which is around salaries. If you look at all of that, it is a profitable venture now. It took some time. It wasn't profitable for the first several years. It was close to break even, sometimes unprofitable the first few years. So the owners had to stick it out. But the belief is that that's what will happen. The game of cricket is going to grow globally. The game of T20 is the vehicle to grow the game globally. In fact, interesting, you have interesting models like T10 as well, which are unique sort of assets that are coming short, that are snappy, that could see Olympic edition in the Olympics going forward. So the belief is that it will eventually, that once the eyeballs come in, they will all become profitable. But that is part of why it is an investment, and it's an investment in the future. So I think if you look at Man City as well, they've, I think, done a really good job in expanding their base, internationally. They're literally in the largest markets, whether it's USA, whether it's China, whether it is India. They've figured out how they are definitely looking at this as a long-term play. We've got the largest captive audiences in the world, and that was a key part of their strategy. So I'm sure they're also looking at this, in the long run. I think sport has enough and more proof points that in the long run, it tends to be a very, very profitable venture, even if it requires some amount of investment upfront. The IPL has been incredibly fast in getting there, which sort of underscores how big cricket is in the country. But it's been proven over and over again, internationally. So it's just a matter of time, in my view.
Rohit, you mentioned a lot of your team is made up of people who've come from that venture capital space, and you from a startup space. It sounds like everyone's quite innovative and has an understanding of what makes a good product and how to make it profitable. What are some of the most important skills that you use in your role to execute on the deliverables?
Sure. So I'd say just to sort of highlight on the point that you said on the team, I think one thing that I've seen at the Royals, and it hopefully will ring a chord with a lot of your listeners as well, and it's probably the way a lot of teams will look at hiring going forward, it's not essential that you need to be from a sports background. I'd say at least over half of the people at the Royals are not from a sports background, and Royals would be their first sports job. There are maybe a few specific, highly specialized roles where maybe there's a slight predisposition to someone who has some sports experience. But otherwise, I'd say largely you've got people who are, I'd say, just generally smart, ambitious, hardworking, and willing to hustle to get things done. There's a lot of functional experience that you'd want to draw on, or I'd say horizontal experience that you'd want to draw on, that doesn't have anything to do with sports, that can be applied in roles like this. So my own experience, obviously, it's around business building, it's around product development, around business development. All of those skills come to the fore when I'm building products for the Royals, because this is what I have done in the past, and it's something that, say, the Royals themselves would not have had as a skill set. And it's sort of that perfect marriage of what I bring to the table and what Royals brings to the table. So I think there are a plethora of such roles, whether it be roles like product managers, data custodians, obviously roles like new ventures at teams like this, which actually have nothing to do with sport, fundamentally, and their fundamentals are around the horizontal that role is about, but which can then be applied to sport. And that gives, I think, massive opportunities for anyone who's trying to break into the field of sport, because more and more I'd say the sector is opening up in terms of the sorts of people that we hire. The Royals is also always looking to hire. So we're not looking for somebody who I've worked in a sports team in the past in that resume.
Yeah, I love that. Do the Royals have sort of like interns coming in? Like, what's it sort of like for a grad wanting to come in and their dreams to work at the Royals? What sort of opportunities are there?
So we have one very interesting, path that at least 2, 3 interns who are currently in the company have pursued, which is interestingly our Royal School of Business, which is the sports programs that I had spoken about earlier with Deakin University. So students who complete those courses and who complete even one of those courses would be eligible for our internship process. We run an internship process typically once a year around this time frame for the upcoming season, and then we also, depending on requirement, we'll run one in the May-June cycle for the July to December season. We generally hire for 6 months, and it depends, on the team requirements and so on. But that's probably the simplest way. You guys can check out those programs, and that's like we give everyone who's complete that program a chance to at least get an opportunity to interview and go through the process. And we've picked at least 3 or 4 interns in the last few months through that process, some of whom have done really, really well with the Royals. In general, though, we do have openings that we keep posting on our LinkedIn. So I would urge everyone to follow us on LinkedIn. We keep posting, we keep getting, resumes, we keep getting, lot of interest over there for people who would want to join us, both from internships as well as from full-time roles. And the good thing is, more and more the world is becoming remote, so there isn't really a essential that you have to be in India, you have to be in a time zone that makes sense. So we've being a lot more open as well on that. We do have a lot of our team, for instance, actually in the UK. So that flexibility, I think, is being afforded more and more just by the way the world has gone. So I say check out our LinkedIn, check out our courses. We keep posting our opportunities there. There are quite a few at any point in time. So would love to have people from some of your listeners join us at the Royals.
Brilliant. Rohit, we asked this question a lot to wrap up our conversations, and I think your experience is quite unique given your startup history. But what is one piece of advice you would give to grads who are trying to reach their goal of working in sport?
This might sound very cliched, but I'd say don't give up. Don't be afraid to do the unscalable things, whether that is cold emailing people, that is taking a sort of sports internship, taking a massive pay cut in order to work in your dream job, or to find, like, if you're passionate about this, I think you should. And the sector is booming. You will be rewarded over time. So I'd say just hustle. Like, don't be afraid to send cold emails. Reach out to people, try to talk to people, try to reach out to people who are in the space, try to reach out to like I spoke to when I tried to join the Royals. I reached out to people who if I had not put my mind to it, there's no way I would have done that. A month ago I would have thought there's no way I'm speaking to this guy. So I'd say just give it your all. Don't give up. Try the unscalable things. Hustle. Something might click. So try 20 people, try 50 people. 2 of them might respond. 5 of them might respond. People are nice. Like even somebody like me, I know that it took that act of niceness for me to get in, right? Like it could have gotten lost in the clutter. So always happy to give back if the opportunity comes. So yeah, I'd say just don't give up and try anything and everything that you think might work, and one of them might.
That's brilliant, and I think you're a great example of someone who didn't give up. You told your story about your startup, how it was a bit of a roller coaster. It was going well, and then there was points where you thought you were going to shut it down, and then you had that successful exit. And I think it's not until you go through something like that that you actually realize the value of persistence and not giving up. And so I think that's great advice. And the stuff that you said around cold emailing, cold messaging people on LinkedIn is fantastic too. So one other point to add, like if other people are going out there and having meetings with people, one of the things that we've created is this little cheat sheet called the Networker, which helps you prepare for those conversations so you can go in confidently and get what you need to out of that as well. So there's a link to that in our show notes and on the website if anyone wants to check it out. But other than that, Rohit, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to learn all about your varied experience in a lot of different spaces and to see how you're applying it at the Rajasthan Royals, coming up with all the new cool ideas that are happening in sport.
Thanks a lot, Ruben. Thanks, Ryan. Pleasure being here. Look forward to seeing the episode.
Alrighty, Rubes. Well, that was quite the episode. It's certainly opened my eyes to what new venture and a new business looks like in one of the biggest cricket teams in the world, in the Rajasthan Royals. What are some things that you take away from that one, mate?
Yeah, you're right. New ventures is one of the hot topics for sport, looking to innovate and grow. And so if I'm listening to this, looking for things to do, read up on what sport is doing to create new revenue, because you're going to get a great understanding of that space. You're going to hear a lot of new ideas, and it's going to put you in good stead if you want to work in that space in the future. You've got to be able to hold a conversation around what sport is doing to grow and innovate in new ways. So just read up, find journals, find articles, talk to people in the industry, and get out there and learn more about the space, because it's an exciting one to be in.
Yeah, good to talk about as well. It's good to have up your sleeve, I would imagine. So read up on that. What I took away was, you can enter sport from any background. So if I'm someone out there listening, thinking, hey, I'm doing something else that is unrelating to sport, but I'd love to work in sport, the dream is not over. What Rohit showed is he was kind of nowhere near sport. He was in venture capital. He was a venture capitalist. He was running his own startup company, and then found his way into sport eventually. So it just shows that you can enter sport from pretty much any background out there.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the way to do that, Ryan, is you've got to know how to sell yourself into the sports industry. Like, people coming from all these different backgrounds have got really good and really strong capabilities. You see a lot of people who've spent 5 to 10 years in an industry, maybe it's engineering, IT, whatever it is, but they've got very good skills. What they don't have is the ability to sell themselves into another industry, because you don't know what that industry looks for. But it's hard to understand how your skills can be used there unless you know what they look for. And so that is a skill in itself that a lot of people don't work on. And now, Ryan, you and I have done this successfully. We've been at Cricket Australia in the T20 World Cup. And so we've tried to put our knowledge of how to sell yourself into the sports industry in a course which is called the Sports Industry Applications course. Now, this course teaches you what the sports industry looks for, and then how to position yourself and your experience, no matter what you've done or where you've come from, could be anything, how to use that and position it in a way that makes yourself attractive to the sports industry. So if you're looking to find that, there's a link to it in our show notes. You can find it on our website. We've had some great success stories from people who've used that in the past. Marcus Sciotto messaged me the other day. He bought the course, got a job at the North Melbourne Football Club. Shiv Ranjit is another one who took this on really early. He put out 250 job applications before finding a full-time job at Softball New South Wales. So if you want to learn more about that and how to sell yourself into sport from any background, check out the Sports Industry Applications course.
Unreal, mate. Well, that was an awesome episode. I loved it personally. And good that I got to mention Man City, my beloved soccer team as well, which is awesome. So
absolutely.
Anyway, be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to chat with you on there. You can find a link in our show notes to do so. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.